the team just got old. One thing about success, it takes a toll on you when you in the finals every year.
This time, it's for real. The Warriors dynasty has come to an end. Or has it? The dynamic modern-day dynasty stands at a crossroads. Echoes of past glories fade away, and they find themselves surrounded by a sea of doubt and uncertainty.
Vasquez kicks it out of Iguodala. Thompson for three. Bang! Klay Thompson from down.
Curry dribbles out McCollum. Behind the back, between the legs, gets a screen. Pass to Draymond, pick and roll. Dumped it down with a right hand.
Not long ago, in 2022, the Warriors were on top of the world, silencing all the doubters. They defied the odds and won the NBA championship. Halfway through the season, and the Warriors are finally starting to find a positive rhythm with huge leaps from their young rising stars, like Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Pajemski. Is it too little? Too late? Will this be enough to bridge the gap from the old guard to the new? The fate of this iconic dynasty hangs in the balance. Newly appointed general manager Mike Dunleavy faces an enormously challenging situation. He faces the delicate task of striking a balance between securing a prosperous future for one of the most iconic teams, while upholding loyalty to the players who have been the heart and soul and built this dynasty. This dilemma has the potential to cast a shadow on the legacy of a truly generational core group of players. The burning question remains, is this truly the end of the Warriors dynasty, or do they have the ability to surprise everyone one more time? Take a second and show some love. Subscribe down below. I really appreciate it. One thing is clear, the Golden State Warriors have changed the game. Mark Jackson built the foundation for Steve Kerr to build an offensive system that broke all existing molds. In an era when playoff basketball was purely defensive, the Warriors imposed their high pace and spacing theory, taking advantage of a void that no team had even tried to explore. And the results? They really spoke for themselves. For almost 10 years, Golden State stood as the pinnacle to surpass. The core group of players evoked a distinct sense of dread, a fear unique to those who had ascended to the summit. Their sheer presence was enough to pose a threat to all competitors. But, to be honest, today, the Warriors have stopped instilling that kind of fear in their opponents. The current situation is completely different because some of the core players who were a vital part of Golden State's success have become increasingly questionable. For example, the Draymond Green situation is very controversial. It's like walking on eggshells with him. You never know each night whether he will be able to stay on the court. He's having an incredible offensive season this year and in true form on the defensive side. That's what makes this situation so complicated. He is such a huge part of this team's success, and they really suffer when he's gone. The Warriors have stayed committed to him, signing an extension this last offseason. Green has an average salary of $25 million per season for the next 4 years, including the player option he will have at the age of 36. That's a lot for someone on shaky ground. Draymond is a tough guy, we all know that, but his actions on the court lately have been incomprehensible, not because of the risk of injury that they entail for other players, but because the NBA has had no choice but to punish him harshly. Draymond has always played with high passion and energy, but in these later years it has become more unhinged, leaving the league to step in. This leaves a major question mark for the Warriors, because he's so pivotal for what they do on the court. Is it really possible for him to play more level-headed, while still bringing that infamous competitive fire? So far, since he's been back from his long extension, he's been able to do that, and the Warriors are finally starting to find a rhythm again. Another big question mark is Klay Thompson, who has really been struggling this year. A step or two slower on both offense and defense, and his shots are just not falling. Klay has been struggling to accept his mortality on the court and opens up about it.
You didn't close tonight. That's obviously going to be a story.
It's all good. Yeah, these guys played great. He played great. PP, Jonathan. At the end of the day, winning trumps all.
Is this an adjustment period for you a little bit? He's done it in a few games, obviously.
Yeah. Kidding me? Go from one of the best players. It's hard for anybody. I'll be honest with you.
Not an easy thing to do for anybody, but especially a Hall of Famer. Klay's current performance is a far cry from his prime. A 5-time All-Star and 4-time champion, he was an exceptional two-way player who did not drop below 40% from three. Many consider him the second-best shooter in history, only after Steph Curry.
Andrew Bogut with a D, 2-on-1.
It's hard for anyone to come back from those kinds of injuries. Now he is shooting just 37.7% from three and 41.3% from the field, the lowest percentage of his career. Klay is set to earn a staggering $43.2 million this season, making him the 12th highest paid player in the NBA. Figures that exceed the salary of other superstar guards like Luka Doncic or Devin Booker. There's no doubt that if Klay decides to re-sign with the Warriors, he'll have to take a significant cut. But we should also remember other teams may be interested in adding one of the most experienced shooters this free agency. It's hard to imagine the core three breaking up at this point, but Klay will probably need to take far less to be able to stay in Golden State. Another one of the Warriors' biggest problems right now is Andrew Wiggins. He's had a really slow start this season, although recently with Draymond back, he's showing flashes of the two-way impact player he was in that last final run. Most experts considered him as a player who lacked the ability to make an impact on a competitive team, and that his stats were nothing more than empty numbers. Wiggins turned his career around when he was traded to the Golden State Warriors in exchange for D'Angelo Russell in February 2020. The Canadian sacrificed some of the offensive weight he had in Minnesota in exchange for improved efficiency and became an indispensable part of Steve Kerr's system, an impact that increased during the 2022 finals.
Wiggins drives and finishes! Exclamation point from Andrew Wiggins!
In which Wiggins delivered incredible performances. He was definitely their second-best player that finals run and had a huge impact on both ends of the floor. There was even speculation that he might have some chance of being named Finals MVP, in a similar way as Andre Iguodala 8 seasons ago. However, something uncertain happened with the forward last season. Wiggins would only play 37 games due to personal reasons. From that moment on, the Canadian was never the same. There are many speculations about the real reasons for his absence, with many fans claiming that his leave was for mental health reasons, alleging some completely bizarre stories. But whatever it was, it really affected his performance. At just 28 years old, you would expect Wiggins to be in his prime and living the best moment of his career. This season, Andrew Wiggins came off the bench for the first time after 9 seasons in the league and is averaging just 12.6 points, 4.4 rebounds, and 1.3 assists, with poor shooting percentages, 42% from the field and 30% from three. Disappointing numbers for a player who is going to make over $100 million over the next 4 seasons. What seemed like a very friendly contract when Bob Myers offered him an extension in October 2022 has turned into a real nightmare for the Warriors. He's had his name swirled around in trade rumors recently, but the trade deadline just passed, and the Warriors chose to ride it out with him, hoping he will find his rhythm again. One bright spot for the Warriors is the incredible Steph Curry. He's still a top 5 player in the league. The best shooter in NBA history is still absolutely elite at 35 years old. One of the best players in the entire league, and probably still the best player at his position.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang! Oh, what a shot from Curry! With 0.6 of a second remaining.
A truly generational talent that remains a statistical anomaly, and the main reason Golden State is still in contention for a play-in spot this season, rather than falling all the way down to lottery spots. Steph is still playing at a level close to his prime. Generational talents like this are capable of reshaping their game over time, as has been the case with LeBron James with the Miami Heat and during his second stint in Cleveland. But if Curry had aged at the same rate as Klay Thompson or Draymond Green, the Warriors' dynasty would have ended already. Steph is among the NBA's elite scorers, averaging 28 points, 4.4 rebounds, and 4.8 assists on 46% from the field, and a spectacular 42.1% from three. Even the advanced stats continue to praise one of the best talents we've had the pleasure of watching shine on the hardwood in every arena across the league. But what should be a blessing for the Warriors may end up being a curse. Having a player that good puts pressure to be a real contender every year, just like the economy. There are boom and bust times in the NBA. All franchises go through cycles of success and failure, and the Golden State Warriors are at that point where they would normally consider starting a rebuild. But it's a theme in the NBA. In teams that have a superstar, they hold on to that player and try to maximize their winning window. It's something we've seen countless times. The 2012 Los Angeles Lakers tried to create one of the most talented Big Four in basketball history when they added Steve Nash and Dwight Howard to their roster. The Portland Trail Blazers had been trying for a decade to surround Damian Lillard with the group of players needed to win. James Harden's Houston Rockets with their attempts to create an unstoppable backcourt with Chris Paul and then Russell Westbrook. But competing in the NBA comes at a price, and it's not low. Teams sacrifice their future and mortgage all their assets to try to get a roster that will allow them to achieve the ultimate glory. But the longer it takes to start rebuilding, the bigger the snowball gets, and that can send a franchise down the drain for long periods of time. The Brooklyn Nets, who in 2013 traded the picks that would eventually become Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum in exchange for an aging Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, is a perfect example. And still to this day, they are suffering the consequences of making those mistakes and repeating those mistakes with the failed superstar trio of Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. That's why the situation for Mike Dunleavy is very, very complicated. Curry is part of that exclusive group of players who have spent their entire career with one team, as was the case with Kobe Bryant or Dirk Nowitzki. But the difference between the point guard and these two players is that at 35 years old, he's still one of the best players in the league. The Lakers had the opportunity to rebuild with Kobe still on their roster, and they got some great young pieces like Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, or Julius Randle because they were losing. The Mavs, who also had disastrous seasons in the last years of Dirk's career, got a generational replacement in Luka Doncic. But Steph is still too good for the Warriors to get one of the first picks in the draft lottery. So, the Warriors have had to try to bolster themselves over these past few seasons with draft picks that haven't always come from the lottery, sometimes successfully, such as with Jordan Poole, who helped them win a championship and then ultimately allowed them to land the best backup point guard in the league in Chris Paul. Or with the much more recent example of Brandon Pajemski, who was picked at 19. He's having an incredible rookie season well above expectations, averaging nearly 10 points and 6 rebounds a game. Brandon Pajemski is the second guard in NBA history to record a double-double and 0 turnovers in 3 consecutive games. But beyond a few guards, Steve Kerr has struggled to develop talent in other players. Forward Jonathan Kuminga has taken an incredible leap this season, but it took Kerr almost half the season to really give him solid minutes. Or the case of Moses Moody, the shooting guard who has also been with the Warriors for 3 seasons. He's had much dissatisfaction with his opportunities despite playing well. Kerr is currently in the hot seat with Warriors fans for his questionable rotation choices. It seems what it really boils down to is Kerr prefers his system, high IQ players, and if you don't completely fit that mold of player, then he won't play you. I don't think Kerr is a bad coach. He revolutionized motion offense and defensive schemes in his earlier coaching years and won many titles because of it. But now, I think he's stuck in his ways, and the league has passed him by. Either he needs to break out of his ways, or he needs a roster that exactly fits his style of coaching. But recently, he has shown some improvement in this area, specifically with Kuminga, after getting publicly called out for it. Drafting the right player for the system hasn't been the easiest of jobs. The Warriors put all their trust in James Wiseman, the number 2 pick in the 2020 draft, who even to this day has been unable to find his role in the NBA. The now Pistons player has been a part of the longest consecutive losing streak in league history, and his decision-making is still far from an average player. A selection that deprived the Warriors from drafting some huge talents in the draft lottery that included some top-tier guards, like LaMelo Ball or Tyrese Halliburton. These look like huge misses now. So, what should Mike Dunleavy do? Well, that's the million-dollar question. No Golden State fan wants to see Steph Curry playing for another team. After all the memories and all the success Steph brought the city, it's only fair that he should have a good ending to his career here. But the truth is that trying to maximize the window of his elite-level production now, while simultaneously building for the future success of the franchise, is proving to be very tricky to balance. Do the Warriors have any real option to surround him with? In a league that typically requires multiple stars to achieve a championship, it's unlikely the GM will be able to get the necessary assets. Golden State is not 1 or 2 players away from becoming a contender. It's much farther away. Honestly, you don't get the opportunity to have a truly generational talent, probably top 5 player ever, on your team every day. Now is the time to push all your chips in and surround Curry with the help he needs to win another championship for the Warriors. It's not an easy decision, and probably would be greatly sacrificing your future for the present, a decision that could further sink the future of the Warriors, who have already traded away much of their future draft picks, trying to get suitable players now. The franchise doesn't even have their pick in this draft, so if Steph suffers a serious injury, not only would they be ranked near the bottom of the league, but they wouldn't be rewarded for doing so. The other option, but incredibly unlikely, is that Dunleavy finally decides to blow up the whole thing once and for all, sending his best players to other teams in exchange for young prospects and draft picks. A decision that, when viewed cold and sensibly, seems like the best option for the team to become competitive again in the long run. To break up the core and trade Curry would leave Warriors fans completely devastated. No, I certainly wouldn't want to be in Dunleavy's shoes right now. It's in his hands to make some of the toughest decisions in the history of a legendary franchise. Mike Dunleavy chose to stand pat at this trade deadline because there weren't many good options available at the right price. So they decided to run with what they have and see how far they can go this season with the infusion of the young rising talent. Depending on how the season goes, the tough decisions are being pushed down the road into the offseason. In the face of uncertainty, Dunleavy stands at the center of a pivotal crossroads. The team's iconic Dynasty, once a dominant force in the NBA, now faces daunting challenges and difficult decisions. The future of key players like Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Andrew Wiggins hangs in the balance, while the eternal brilliance of Steph Curry remains a beacon of hope. The recent ascent of Jonathan Kuminga has injected a burst of new life into the aging team. As the Warriors grapple with the complex task of balancing present success with future rebuilding, Dunleavy must navigate a path that ensures a fitting end to Curry's incredible career, while also laying the foundation for a new era of Golden State basketball. The decisions made this offseason will have a major impact on how this dynasty ends, whether the Warriors choose to stay loyal with the core that built the dynasty or shake it up. One thing remains clear: the NBA waits for no one. What do you guys think? Can the Warriors shock everyone one more time? Or is the Warriors dynasty really over this time?